So here we are, the reunited captain sweep in the field. It's been a long time.
Been a long time.
It's been a long time. We're both white, bald, and beautiful.
Indeed. Yeah, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you. Look like you came in with quite a stir with a very long message compared to most.
Yeah, I don't know, I just looking at those four ideas and what I was already contemplating in the moment, it just seemed to flow.
Uh-huh. Well, it was almost a call out to you, I guess, to see the field, the actual card, the field and potential, exploration.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
For anyone not knowing, I made a post in Facebook which had these cards, and the field is known as the field. In the past, he has new names now, but does it look like I have like a map of Albania on my forehead?
It's a little bit red there, yeah. I thought it was, I can see the map of Africa. What are you talking about? Albania. I guess it's an A word still.
Well, Gorbachev, he had a sort of map of Albania, and I thought maybe, but yeah, I don't know if that's new or.
Were you leaning on your hand, contemplating something?
No, no. Looks a bit like South America, maybe.
No. Oh yeah, I can see that.
So what's happening in your life?
Yeah, there's one of them right there.
Oh, geez.
Broken arm.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I don't know. The last time I talked to you, I saw you at Cook Street down by the Mocha House.
Right.
I think at that time I mentioned I was uh, at moving into a community house project.
Right.
And I moved in here beginning of October. And 2 days later, I was upstairs having a meditation and shut the lights off and was on the way to the bedroom and didn't see the stairwell. My foot went down into the stairwell and I tumbled down 12 stairs in the dark.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, wasn't my best move.
Oh, and so you were falling and you hit out your arm and it got, or did you tumble on top of it, or?
Well, I did kind of two. It felt like two cartwheels down 12 stairs, pretty steep. And so I wasn't, and it was dark. I wasn't that cognizant exactly of what was going on, except that I was falling, and it was a odd sensation. And when I got to the bottom, then I was like, okay, there's soreness in my wrist, and I was moaning and rolling around a bit. And my partner Shan came down, just trying to set up the phone there, and yeah, I actually passed out after I was down at the bottom of the stairs for probably 5 minutes or something. Didn't hit my head. I think I was just kind of overwhelmed by the experience. Plus, after my meditation was with the hape, which is like a strong tobacco snuff. So I was already in a bit of an altered state. Went to the hospital and was there till 4 o'clock, had a cast put on. And the next day I was in the hospital for surgery and had pins and plates put in. And it's been almost a week and a half or something now, I guess, about that. It's given me time to get off work and start focusing on things I'd rather be focusing on. So that's I guess the positive outcome.
And what's that? What do you want to focus on?
Well, I've been reading. Well, one of the things I want to focus on is the community here, and the space I've moved into. This couple has owned it for like 20 years, raised their family here, bought a new house in Langford a few years back. I moved there and have been running this as kind of like a rooming house through COVID. Is kind of like their project is put on hold a little bit. So they had a couple people here just before we moved in and they moved out. And in that transitionary period, they came into contact with a funder. and a builder who's trying to buy the 4 lots on the corner here at like Quadra and Hillside area,
Yeah.
closer to Cook actually. And with the vision of some kind of communal, condominium type situation where they have input into the building process, can potentially use some of the building materials from the houses here. I can sort of give a quick view of the backyard. Oops, shit. The backyard here. So I'm up on this stairwell, and behind me is a cob bench here.
Very nice.
Cob bench, and then circling off of the stairwell in the backyard here. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4 big Gary Oaks
Very nice.
with a walking path in the back, and over here in the corner there's a hot tub there.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a nice little backyard here, very comfortable, set up for potential like small gatherings and stuff. There's a little bar fridge back here and stuff. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, so they want to maintain this Gary Oak meadow as part of the setup, potentially some sort of tiny home concepts in it. It's kind of a work in progress, but it's part of a deeper vision that this woman Shailene has about. She's been working through this space for, I don't know, 10 years at least, doing various communal projects with mosaics and sort of community inclusion. And
I met her. I remember.
yeah, you've met Shailene. Yeah, she knows of you.
Oh, so that's the same house she was in, or she is.
Yeah.
Oh, she bought another house and moved out.
Well, yeah, she hasn't. She's been an artist in residence in this place, but her actual home residence is in Langford.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I remember she had some very beautiful things going on.
Yeah. So yeah, just interfacing with them and continuing a collaborative conversation, and also in conjunction with I don't know, I've been studying Steiner and
Excuse me.
Anthroposophy pretty focused in a focused way for, I don't know, 3 years, a little over maybe. And part of that work is some modern day writers that are in that field that are talking about different experiential practices, individual and group settings to develop clairvoyant perception in a sort of communal space with a sort of scientific investigational methodology or value set. And then in conjunction with that, looking at the game board and your cards, I've been sitting with them a little bit, and I've introduced that to Shailene, and she's interested in sitting down, and potentially others, but I'm just kind of brainstorming and sitting down in contemplation with that of how I'd like to organize and structure those kind of communication processes.
Uh, well, I mean, I always felt like the best thing that happened was when we were doing those weekly sessions, and
Yeah.
the same group. I think it's different when the same group does it over and over again versus having an introduction and you have to always go through everything from the get-go.
Yeah.
So if anything, I would suggest it would be, find 6 people that want to sit down weekly and just do what we did. Everyone gets a question, go through the process.
My challenge is that part of what I'm trying to develop for myself and want to develop with others is something that is called sense-free thinking, or heartfelt thinking, or a process of entering into the imaginal together, which requires more than just concepts or it requires it, even if you're starting with concepts, it requires a different kind of engagement rather than just theoretical or mentational.
For sure. What about doing a polarity where one week you do that and then another week you do the process, and so you're going back, and because I know that whatever that process it is so structured, it's so rigid, but it because of that it has what it has. But then
Yeah.
I think on your end it's the opposite, right? Where you want to get away from conceptualization and you're probably more felt sense and whatever else that you're bringing in.
Yeah. Well, even as an example, what I was thinking today was um, starting with a point, visualizing a point, and drawing that point out into a line, and then expanding that line into a square, and then expanding that square into a cube. Um, but as you're doing that, the point is 1, the line is 2, the square is 4 points, the cube is 8 points. But as you're visualizing that, the point is red and the line is its polar opposite, or its dimensional shift into its opposite, which is green. And then the dimensional opposite is into a primary, which is yellow. And then the opposite of yellow is purple, which brings you back into it, another plane shift into, yellow into purple. So it's seeing kind of multiple ideations simultaneously and mapping those in space. But as you're doing that, it's more than just about the visual mapping also. It's what does a point feel like in reference to drawing a line? What does it actually feel like in your mind's eye to draw a line? And then while holding that feeling in juxtaposition, what does it feel like to go from a line to a plane? And then another contemplation in there is, what does red feel like beyond our notions or our memories or our concepts about it? What kind of imagination or inspiration arises in relationship to red and into green? So that would be a deeper, longer process as well. But then I was seeing that you could potentially map the concepts in with that too. It's like if you have different lenses coming in with single words, those become points, and you can start creating point juxtapositions or concept juxtapositions, and the relationships of what concepts or feelings or inspirations come up around those and holding them within a larger framework. So yes, and to what you're saying basically.
Yeah, because I mean the what you still have that board, right? Like a
Yeah.
two-dimensional board of a tetrahedron
Yeah.
conceptually, right? That can put all the concepts on it. So if you're adding the spatial connections, I mean, I think that's a next level thing to do with people as they're doing it, because that's what I think was meant to happen, right? To have the conceptual frameworks
Yeah.
in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's just in that sense of fractal modeling and being able to. I watched one of your most recent posts on your Facebook feed there, and your talk showing maps, and you're zooming in on a map and how that might go to the family, the different kinds of relationships, and then going into one relationship and how that brings another level of structure. So how to create that continuity within your mindset that you can all those reference points
Yeah,
and track where you came from and where you're going and how to get back to where you came from. And
yeah. I mean, I think that's where the noosphere or virtual reality is going to go.
yeah,
Software too, and this is, as
yeah,
you know, this is I've just been working on a conceptual framework for that. So
yeah,
if you're advancing the mental sides of it into the reality of the mind, because it's just a construct in front of people when they
yeah,
first get introduced to it. But the
yeah,
idea is to build the frameworks in your mind that then match the software so you know how to navigate.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess part of the outcome of this is that any object that we look at, we get a visual sensation or audible sensation or felt sensation. And then there's sort of an automatic responsive mental concept that comes into one's mind's eye, as it were. There may be emotional sympathies and antipathies that arise. And just like in that note that I shared, that idea that I was sharing in your post, that between the senses receiving the information about the object that we're looking at and the mental idea that that comes up inside of us, that our eye function is juxtapose those two portents of information, I guess you could say. Are you following that? Well, I mean, look at any object in your environment, right? Like your computers, your phone screen that you're looking at. And then in your mind's eye, think about where you got that phone. Think about various conversations you've had using that phone. So you have your internal subjective pictures about that phone, but your eyes see just the artifact that's in front of you. And as much as you can make that phone outside of you through your eye function an artifact that you recognize you're seeing with your eyes, those internal memory pictures or interpretation pictures that are happening internally, your eye is making objects of them as well, in that you can see them like they're objects.
Right.
And so usually when we're seeing objects in front of us, our eye is not attenuated, is not focused on or in real direct consideration of the object. We're usually drawn to our mental images internally, or our beliefs or our projections or our ideas about the object. And so the notion is that if we learn to develop the organ of perception of the eye, juxtapose those two functions, that we can learn to sort of clear space in the organ that develops internally and allow the mental soul aspect of the thing that we're looking at to actually arise inside of our mind rather than our ideas about the thing that we're looking at in front of us.
So to see what is, to see the essence.
Right. And then in seeing the essence, say that might be a feeling at first, but then within the feeling, the geometry of it, the texture of it, if you're having a synesthetic experience, what would be the feeling of tasting the color of it, seeing the sound of it, seeing the frequency of it? But then even further than and deeper than that, the suggestion is that all phenomenon, behind all phenomenon, are beings, sentience. So we're often seeing the reflections of those sentiences through the reflections or the shadows of our own minds, rather than learning to tune into the essence of those beings. And so in that sense, we're learning to see the beings rather than the objects, for the objects are only the metaphors presented by the essence of the beings.
I guess it's kind of like this First Nation elder once said that we have words for the essence of the cedar tree, the spirit of the cedar tree, and we have no language for that, so we can't even come up with anything. But I mean, to them, they're speaking to a being. They're speaking
Right.
to a live being, and they actually have a conduit of understanding because their language is really in touch with them.
Well, in that sense, like they have songs that when they go on a vision quest and meet the spirit of say a cedar tree, there's a song that arises, or an internal vision that arises as the quality of that being. Or in South American shamanism, they would say the plants have teachers and doctors that are associated with them that they would come into relationship with. But then from a Western scientific perspective, some might say that that's just a subjective notion that's particular to that tribe. And any other tribe that would come to that tree or to that idea would start to form its own subjective ideations of that relationship, which can be practical enough. But the notion of from a spiritual science perspective is that even if those subjective relational storylines or song lines are specific to those tribes, that there's beings behind those tribes, and that you can start to go deeper into the storylines, I guess you could say, and find the folk spirits of those tribes. But then you could go deeper into a spirit that is creating that is creating the folk tribes as well.
Are you referring to the ancestors, or are you referring to more than that?
Well, in the sense of ancestors, one could speak of the ancestors as those humans, which are the predecessors of those actual people in the living present tribe. That would be one way of talking about ancestors, yeah. Another way of talking about ancestors are that the physical bodies that those people are inhabiting have the genetic predispositions of their forefathers and foremothers, but they also have the genetic predisposition of what it means to be an animal in contrast to what it means to be a human. And then what it means to be a vegetable in contrast to being a human and an animal. And then what it means to be mineral in contrast to that. And if you're looking at the mineral, the vegetable, the animal, and the human, and within the human, the evolution of an I function that is able to say I, those might be looked at as such as strings on an instrument that are playing together. In that way, they're tones that are ringing out. But no tone is in an isolation, in that there's subharmonics and overtones. So one starts learning through the tone to access the subtones and the overtones. And so in subtones, you can start talking about, say, different elemental kingdoms that are coalescing around the tones and giving them form. And say the overtones, you could start looking back into where the sun came from before it was a sun. You can start looking at the background radiation of the constellations as elders.
The tone you're using in your voice is starting to put me into an altered state. I forgot
Well,
what it's like to talk to the field.
Yeah, I have to go into an altered state to access that and be able to articulate it with any sense of clarity, right?
And then the tone, and then the tone, and the tone. And yeah. It's been a long time since we chatted, Field. I always feel I have to adapt my internal abstract thinking, understanding awareness when you're speaking, because you have a unique style. Have you been writing a book yet?
No. I I don't know. One day I may write a book. Um, at this point, these notions that I'm sharing, for me, they make logical sense. It's like I can follow these ideas logically. But when I stop in a given moment and become aware of my own internal sound, my own internal biases and ideas, and notice how easily I can get distracted when trying to concentrate on something specifically and investigate it scientifically, or investigate it to the degree that I feel like I have an internal proof that I can articulate and give a methodology which others can follow, that I've followed, and saying confidently, if you follow these methodologies, you can very likely come to the same territory that I'm speaking about. Until I feel more confidence in that regard, I'm not ready to just become another self-acclaimed guru of ideas or whatever.
Well, I'm definitely waiting for that moment because I'll be the first in line to go, how did you do that?
Yeah.
So I think I need to go.
Yeah.
Um, but it's wonderful seeing you again. It's wonderful recording with Captain Sweep in the field. I can see
Um, are,
the
are you in Victoria? Are you in Duncan? Are you in Vancouver? Do you want to divest that here?
I'm in Saskatchewan.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay. That's a different place.
very different. Very different.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
but my main thing right now is to write a manual, to finish a manual for the cards. And I'm wondering
Yeah.
maybe if you wanted to help in any way, um, maybe contribute pieces to the manual that are more your area of expertise, because you're one of the few people that has actually played with the cards and played with me a bit. Would you be interested?
I'm interested. Whether I have the focus, time, or capacity truly.
Mm.
But I'm willing to take a look at it. Anything that you can pass my way in terms of areas of focus that I can start to consider. I'm even having conversations like this as preambles to come into some negotiation and agreement about exactly what we're looking at, so I have more clarity about approaching that.
Okay. And it may just be kind of like maybe posting things and then us going back and forth a bit. And maybe that's,
Yeah.
we'll see. Whatever it is, I think it should be creative and inspiring for both of us, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I just, I don't think there's many people that could contribute quite like you could. In fact, I don't think there's any. And I appreciate your perspective always, even though it may not particularly agree with mine, but always it's in alignment in the overall big picture
Yes. Yes.
of oneness.
That seems to be the run for the mill for most of us, right? So here we are.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so give my love to Shannon, and
Yeah.
I hope to talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Elijah.
Okay, bye, for you.